I killed my son for the dumbest reason in the world. Why I did it will shock you. My name is John Shively and this is my story. I am a 65-year-old man that lives in Madison, Wisconsin. I have a 25-year-old son and we get along pretty well. However, on July 22nd of this year, everything would change. It was a normal Saturday. The warm Wisconsin air hugged me as I sat on my porch and took in the nature. I was taking things day by day as I was struggling a bit financially at the moment. I was late on taxes and hadn't been able to pay my mortgage for a few months. That's when my 25-year-old son Zachary walked up to me and asked me for some money. He said he needed $2.50. I argued with him for a bit, because he was always asking for money, but eventually I grabbed $2 and gave it to him. He had already had 25 cents, so he was short 25 cents for what he wanted to buy. I couldn't believe he asked me for more money even after I just gave him some. We got into a heated argument, he pushed me, and that's when I pulled out my gun and shot him point blank. I immediately regretted it and called the police. They showed up, but my boy was already dead. I have been charged with intentional homicide and my bond is $300,000. Follow for more stories.
Hi, my name is Ethan and here's everything you need to know about the White Widow in under 1 minute. Samantha Luthway is a British woman who is known to be married to the guy who committed the 7/7 London bombings that happened in 2005. Even though he passed away on that day, that was only the beginning for Samantha's long reign of terror. She was accused of the bombing of the football bar in 2012, a mall fire and collapse of the Westgate shopping mall in September of 2013, and several other bombings that led her to being accused of over 400 deaths. She was quickly given the name the White Widow, and here's the information you don't want to hear. She still has not been found. The only information that we have is from February of 2022 when her uncle claimed that he believed she was dead. However, authorities believe that she's actually hiding in a shelter somewhere and is extremely dangerous.
Did you know the opening to this horror film was based on a crazy true crime case? The opening scene of Jeepers Creepers features two people driving down the road with a van tailgating them. It's a scene that is reminiscent of a reenactment done on the Unsolved Mysteries program in 1991. The case in question involves Ray and Marie Thompson, siblings who were just driving down the road one day outside of Michigan. In their rearview mirror, they noticed a suspicious van. Now, the van initially passed them and they did notice that he seemed to be in a hurry. Shortly after, they passed the van again, but this time they noticed it was parked outside an abandoned schoolhouse. The driver appeared to be holding a blood-soaked sheet. Although they did drive past, yet again they noticed the van shortly after in their rearview mirror. It was driving aggressively close to them for the next 2 miles, just like the opening scene in Jeepers Creepers. The siblings turned off the highway and discussed what they should do. They decided to turn the car back around and try and get a good view of the number plate to report to the police. However, when they approached the van again, they noticed that the mystery man was crouching down and changing the number plates. They were also shocked to see inside the open door of the van was covered in blood. They immediately called police, who were actually already on the hunt for the male van driver and his wife. Dennis Depew was the man in question. In 1971, he had married Marilyn. They did have 3 children together, but Dennis was very controlling. Marilyn filed for divorce in 1989 and Dennis moved out. However, Dennis would regularly freak Marilyn out by letting himself into the house. One day she came home to find him sat on the sofa, even though she had changed all of the locks. On Easter Sunday, 1990, Dennis arrived at her house to collect 2 of the children. However, Dennis became angry at Marilyn during the visit and ended up pushing her down the stairs. With their children watching on in horror, Dennis beat Marilyn and dragged her out of the house. Their eldest daughter ran to a neighbour's house to try and ring police, but it was too late. Dennis drove off with Marilyn in the van, lying to his children that he was taking her to the hospital. Responding to the eyewitness reports, the forensic team taped off the schoolhouse crime scene. They discovered Marilyn's body the day after by the roadside. She had been shot in the head. Police were now on the hunt for Dennis as he drove across the country. On March the 20th, a woman returned to her house to see her boyfriend's van on the drive. She believed that her boyfriend's name was Hank. He told her that he needed to rush home as his mum was very unwell. Meanwhile, the TV in the house was playing an Unsolved Mysteries episode. The episode featured news of a man called Dennis who was wanted for murder. Hank, whose real name was Dennis, was desperately trying to distract his girlfriend from the episode. He was terrified that if she saw the TV, she would recognize him. At this point, Dennis drove off, but the police were on his tail. A 15-mile high-speed car chase ensued. Officers rammed his van and forced him off the road, but seconds later, Dennis pulled the trigger and unalived himself.
Happy Monday, guys. I hope you're having a great Monday. Holy hell, I totally forgot about Carly Russell 1.0 Chloe Stein until y'all reminded me. So let's talk about it. Guys, I forgot all about Chloe. So Chloe lives in Pennsylvania, and she was about to graduate from Penn State when she came up missing. She had left her job at a Sonic drive-thru about 10:45 one night, and then she called her boyfriend, or did she text him? She texted him and told her boyfriend, like, I'm being pulled over by police, and then she vanished. Well, I was refreshing my memory about Chloe's story. I was looking through all the articles, and they kept on saying, gorgeous co-ed goes missing. Okay, anyways, because when this first happened, my cousin sent me a Twitter post talking about that a woman had been abducted after she texted her boyfriend and said that she was being pulled over by a cop, and they found her Volkswagen little Beetle, abandoned, and they put out like an endangered person alert for her, and she was gone for 20 hours, and then voila, she reappears right at her house. What in the Carly Russell is going on? So this all happened back in May, and I cannot believe that I forgot about Carly 1.0 Chloe right here. So anyways, after she was gone for 20 hours, somebody called in a tip and said, I need y'all to know that she's lying. She's over there at this house. Y'all need to go on over there. And they went over there and they found her because she had not been abducted. She'd been faking it. But of course she lied at first, because ain't that what they all do? Police go and they talk to Chloe, because the lie's always what's going to get you. She says, I was abducted by a man at gunpoint. I was bound. He held me. I was kind of assaulted, like not really, but kind of assaulted. I mean, assaulted, but you're not going to find any evidence of it. And then, after 20 hours, he just dropped me off in the alleyway and he went home, okay? Shut the hell up. And they were like, that doesn't happen, ma'am. You go into jail. So anyways, they done charged the hell out of Chloe right here. There's so many, I'm going to have to read them. False alarm to the Agency of Public Safety, false report, disorderly conduct, and obstruction of the administration of law and other government functions. They gonna put Chloe in jail, allegedly. But her attorney, he don't want her in jail, because her attorney says that he hopes that they can work it all out before it even goes to trial, because he said she is very, very hardworking. Obviously not in college, but somewhere else. That she's very personable, like that matters if you're a liar, and she's very, very well educated. I mean, I disagree, because, she'd have planned this out better if she had any sense and two brain cells to rub together, allegedly, for educational purposes only, but what do I know? I just have an iPhone and do TikToks. So Chloe here, Carly 1.0, do you know why she faked her own abduction? Because she was supposed to graduate from Penn State in 3 days, and she forgot to tell everybody in her family and all her friends and her boyfriend that she done dropped the hell out and she wouldn't graduate. And why would you tell them? It's not like it's ever going to come up. You can just go to school forever. So this happened at the beginning of May, and by May the 25th, they had already struck a plea deal with Chloe and her attorneys that she was going to go into something called a accelerated rehabilitative disposition program for first-time offenders, and that after she completes her probationary period and the program, that she can expunge her record, and we're going to all act like this never happened. Except it did. It did happen. Chloe faked her own abduction and pretended like a police officer stole her because she dropped out of school and forgot to tell everybody. And they was already planning a graduation and got her a whole graduation gift and a surprise party. And instead of just fessing up, she was like, you know what? I think I'm going to plan an abduction. And it really triggered the hell out of me that all these articles was like, gorgeous co-ed is missing. Everybody look, for the love of God, help us. Would it really matter? What if they were like, ugly co-ed disappears, we don't give a hell, nobody even look, they'll eventually turn up maybe, who cares? It was just real weird that they kept on commenting on this person's looks. It was just real weird, we got to stop that, because whether you're gorgeous or you're ugly, if you come up missing, we got to find you, And I hope you have a great Monday, guys. But remember, if I ever come up missing, you got to say she's old as hell and kind of mentally unstable. And you know where I'm going to be? I'm going to be at the Red Roof Inn. I'm going to be eating Cheez-Its and get my nails done. So you just tell them to go on down there and pick me the hell up. And I'll talk to you later, guys. Bye.
This man had the almost perfect alibi. So have you ever heard of Michelle Young? There's a lot of questioning when it comes to Jason and Michelle's marriage. Jason made it seem like while they did argue, it was pretty typical, like most couples do, and Michelle's family seems to think that their arguing was a lot more severe than he's trying to make it out to be. But one thing is pretty clear, it seems like Jason did not want to have children, and Jason was not faithful to Michelle during their entire marriage. In fact, when Michelle was pregnant with her first child, Jason was so upset he asked her to terminate the pregnancy, but Michelle refused. Then on the way to see Jason's parents one weekend, they would have an accident, and this accident would result in Michelle losing her pregnancy. But soon after this loss, Meredith would find out that she was pregnant again, this time expecting a little girl. They had their daughter, and they would name her Cassidy. After Cassidy was born, things seemed fine and they were raising their child together. Jason ended up getting a new job when Cassidy was around 2 years old, and this would take him out of town quite frequently. Michelle would also find out that she was expecting another child. This time they were going to have a little boy. The couple was living in Raleigh, North Carolina. In November of 2006, Michelle asked Jason if it would be okay if her mother came to stay from Thanksgiving all the way until Christmas. Jason did not seem excited about this at all, and in fact, this led to a couple of fights between the couple. On November 2nd of 2006, Jason was scheduled to go to a business meeting about 160 miles away in Virginia. That evening, Michelle had a friend come over, and they asked Jason if he wanted to eat with them, and he said that he wanted to eat at a Cracker Barrel in the town he was staying in. After Jason left, Michelle and her friend spent the evening together taking care of Michelle's daughter. They gave her a bath and put her to bed, and then went down and watched Grey's Anatomy. Michelle did confide in her friend, saying that her and Jason had been fighting quite a bit more than usual. Michelle's friend said that something felt eerie about that night. She felt so uncomfortable that she even asked Michelle to walk her to her car when the evening was over because she just felt like someone was watching her the entire night. On November 3rd, so the next day, Jason called Meredith, who is Michelle's sister, and asked her to go hide some papers he had printed out from the family computer of Coach bags. He said that he was planning on buying Michelle a Coach bag as a surprise, and he didn't want her to find the papers. Meredith would get into the home by opening the garage door, which was broken, so they could just easily lift it up, and she found Michelle laying in a pool of her own blood at the top of the stairs. Part 2 will be up in a couple of minutes down in the... Here is part 2 to the case of Michelle Young. When Meredith discovered Michelle on the top of her stairs, she immediately called 911, and they were able to confirm that Meredith had passed. This scene was very bloody, and they found little footprints in Michelle's blood made by her 2-year-old daughter. Police did immediately start looking into Jason, but he did have a pretty solid alibi, and he lawyered up pretty quickly, saying that it was on the advice of his counsel he wouldn't talk to them. Checking into his alibi, they did find that Jason was 30 minutes late to his meeting, but when they looked at security footage and at the, looked into the history of his key card at his hotel room, they realized that he had only used his key card to enter his room one time that night and never used it again. But the security footage at the hotel would show very strange things. There was a door that had been propped open with a small red rock basically all night long. And on top of that, the security camera was unplugged for most of the night, and it wasn't plugged back in until hotel staff found that there was something wrong with it. Also, after it was plugged back in, somebody moved it so that it was looking towards the ceiling. There was also an incident with their daughter that she told her aunt that she had seen Daddy spanking Mommy that night, which is kind of weird. There was also a gas station attendant that swore that she saw Jason early that morning when Michelle had died getting fuel. But when this went to trial, Jason's attorney said that there was no way he could make the 160-mile drive, commit the crime, and then drive all the way back and only be 30 minutes late to his meeting. Jason also said that he had left his hotel room a couple of times that night, but he was adamant that he did not do this. There were a few witnesses that saw a light-colored SUV parked in front of their home while they believed the crime was being committed, and Jason was driving a tan-colored SUV. The first trial would end with a hung jury, and during the second trial, they would find him guilty and sentence him to life. Jason would appeal this sentence, and at first he did get the appeal approved, and he was looking for a third trial, but the Supreme Court would overturn that ruling and then deny him the third trial. So Jason is still currently sitting in prison, but I'm genuinely curious to know what your thoughts are about this. I highly encourage you to look more into this because there's a lot of details that I couldn't put into 2 videos and people don't already like part 2. So, but yeah, do some researching yourself. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments and follow for more true crime.
This is a shocking moment. 19-year-old Chelsea Standage ignored the pleas of her friends and boyfriend to slow down as she was driving through the streets of Horbury in West Yorkshire at up to 80 miles an hour. Just a quick warning, viewer discretion is advised.
Oh my god!
It was the early hours of November 13th, 2021, and Chelsea had been drinking with friends. She was then met by her boyfriend Elliot, and when they all climbed into Chelsea's Vauxhall Corsa, she was almost 2 times the drink drive limit. Chelsea started driving faster and faster, and as her friends and boyfriend told her to slow down, she laughed and ignored them. She reached almost 80 miles an hour going through the residential streets of Horbury, and as she was going downhill, she clipped a car and ploughed straight into a wall, crushing the passenger side of the car where Elliot was sitting. Elliot didn't stand a chance of survival. Part of his spine was missing in the wreckage, his rib cage had shattered and pierced his vital organs, leaving only his heart intact. Elliot's mum had to go and identify his body, and she said, quote, "I was begging and begging him to wake up. If I could have put my breath into him to give him my life, I would have done it in a heartbeat. I wanted to swap places with him. When I held his hand and realised he wasn't waking up, I just dropped to the ground." Following Elliot's death, his family's grief was actually made worse by seeing photos and videos of Chelsea out clubbing and drinking while awaiting her trial. They were also absolutely furious that she was allowed to continue driving up until her court date. Chelsea admitted causing death by dangerous driving, as well as 2 counts of causing serious injury by dangerous driving to her 2 other passengers. She was sentenced to 8 years and 8 months in prison, but she'll be considered for release after serving just 2/3 of that sentence.
The fire happened just before 9 p.m. Sunday.
This is Autumn Pereira with her father, Martin. And in this picture, despite pleas from her mother to the courts, was only the 2nd time Martin was allowed to have custody of his child over the weekend. Autumn's mother, Sharon, pleaded with the courts to keep her daughter away from her ex, but the courts ignored her. After picking up his child, Martin called his ex and said, "Do I have your fucking attention now?" Just a mere hours after this photo was taken, Martin put his daughter in the back seat of a car, chained the doors shut, and set it on fire. Autumn was just 3 years old.
Sources say he did not live with his daughter and was in a custody battle with her mother. He also allegedly was arrested in 2013 for harassment.
This is the New York court system. And it's got to stop.
I can't see her doing something like that. She's super intelligent. I can't.
This is the moment Zach realized his wife, Ashley, was a secret murderer. Police found Taylor Wright, a friend of his wife, lying dead on his property. Police suspect Ashley was the murderer, but Zach refuses to believe it. Little did he know, he was about to get the shock of his life in the interrogation room.
Can you tell me how you came to know Taylor?
Through working PI cases.
Okay.
She'd come over to our house every now and then. She met my wife. They became friends.
Did you guys ever have a falling out or?
Never. From doing this job for so long, I would just pick up little lies from her. Stuff just didn't start seeming right. She would disappear for days. You couldn't get her on the phone. Greg and I would try to call her. You couldn't get her on the phone.
Taylor had been known to go missing for days at a time, but this time was different. She hadn't been seen for over a month before she was found. Early on, cops believed her disappearance was nothing out of the ordinary, but she'd left everything at home, and what little texts she sent to her friends were in language she wouldn't normally use.
I mean, I'm sure now you've read the news and everything.
Yeah.
You kind of know the date that we're talking about. Have you had a chance to go back and pinpoint where you were on the 8th of September?
It's I can't remember, but I'm trying to do the very best I can so I can tell y'all the best I can. I went to the bank yesterday to pull my statement. I know I ate lunch at the seafood place at 9 Mile in Pine Forest. I ate there, and I remember eating by myself, and I remember Ash not being able to make it because she was tied up with work.
Taylor was last seen on the 8th of September, so Zach attempts to recount what he was doing that day. Given that he used his debit card to purchase food in the area, it's likely that his story is true. What's interesting, though, is that he mentioned he was out on his own as his wife was busy with work. It seems that he fully believes this to be the truth, and while he knows his wife has been questioned about the murder, he doesn't know that she's currently the #1 suspect. The cops aren't trying to learn more about the case. They're trying to determine if Zach had a hand in the murder, or at the very least, turn him against his own wife.
Do you know anything about?
Breaking news, photos of Alicia Navarro with a mystery man have surfaced. The man was identified by locals as 36-year-old Eddie Davis. She was seen laughing and playing with a dog outside of Davis's parents' home. These photos were taken a day after the two fled the apartment that they were originally living in. The photographer said that she appeared to stick right by Davis in the blistering heat. Eventually, they left in a dark-colored van and went around the corner to a neighbor's home where the pair and one adult believed to be Davis's father unloaded stuff as a woman who was believed to be his mother sat nearby. She was also seen playing with a dog in front of a neighbor's home with a bright smile. The four then drove back before going to a supermarket where the older woman went in. Once they left the supermarket, they went straight home and were not spotted again. I'll keep you guys updated. What do you think? Drop in the comments.
All right, at 10:18, we're following breaking news. Skyfox up and over the scene that shows police and sheriff's response down below. This is in the city of Downey at the Los Padrinos Juvenile Hall, where the sheriff's department is confirming with us that they were called to assist what was described as a riot within the juvenile hall, and you can see plenty of flashing lights down below. This is on Quill Drive in the city of Downey. Christine.
Yeah, the sheriff's department called there to assist Downey PD, and Downey PD had requested an ambulance, so we're not sure exactly what happened there or what the medical needs were, but they are staged there for medical necessities. It's late at night there, so we're trying to get more information at this late hour. If we get it, we will bring it to you.
What's wrong with you? What? Talk to my daughter. Parker? Please, let me inside. Parker!